And we're live now.
Great. This is Senate Government Operations Committee back on the 16th of April. We are taking a brief final look at H 649, the bill about the Vermont Truth and Reconciliation Commission. We have on our website draft 2.3.1. Is that the right? Is it 3.1?
3.1 is the newest one with the change you just requested.
Yeah, but 2.1 is what we have.
Senator,
2.1 is
just
what you have
before we
printed
went
out.
live, I said on our website. Okay, so it's on our website. We don't have printed copies for everyone because we just made a last minute wording change. We're gonna have Damien walk us through the new draft. And then we're gonna hopefully take a motion, but go ahead, Damien.
Okay, good afternoon. For the record, I'm Damian Leonard from the Office of Legislative Counsel. I will walk you through the changes here. I think some of these were shown in your first draft 1.1, but I left everything highlighted, so we'll just walk through everything the Senate is changing from the House version. So starting on page 6, I believe what we did is we changed this. It was in a separate section before. And we realized when we were doing the last walkthrough that we had two sections amending 1 VSA 906. So I combined them. So you'll see on lines 9 and 10 there, we're striking out the rulemaking authority for the commission, which firmly puts them into the advisory board category for purposes of S55 if that moves forward. Okay, on page 8, we are adding, this is new language based on the discussion at the last meeting. This provides that the draft and final report shall include a bibliography of all sources, interviews, and materials utilized in preparing the commission's report, a summary of the interviews utilized in preparing the report, including the total number of interviews and whether each interview is public or confidential, and whether a transcript or summary or both is available for each interview. So this is understanding that for some of the interviews, they may have just taken notes and there may just be a summary. In other cases, it may be a recorded interview, which has a transcript prepared for it. And in some cases, you might have both. And then finally, information regarding where members of the public can access and obtain copies of the sources and materials utilized in preparing the report, including the transcripts or summaries of interviews. And so this sort of requires that everything be listed and that people be provided with information as to where they can pull copies of this, but doesn't require the report to include 15,000 pages of transcripts and other things.
Wow, that sounds like a really good compromise.
Just assuming that the transcripts tend to run really long, from my experience with court and depositions. So I can just imagine that if even 10 or 15 interviews, you could have thousands of pages. So that is that. Questions, changes, issues?
Richard's honoring you and for daffodils.
The daffodils,
Aren't they great? Thank
last
you.
week's daffodils,
They're just
which
so
were
pretty.
rehomed at my house, were much appreciated by everyone.
Glad
I want to say thank you.
You're welcome. You enjoyed that.
There are 4 types in here.
Yeah, those were much appreciated. Left to the dining room.
So it's committee will recall this change was what we discussed on Friday with our witness who wanted to make sure there was information about what the sources were. So, yeah.
The next change is on page 9. And there's a couple of different changes here. First on line 6, we're striking out the word only. So any other record or document produced in relation to an interview shall be available to the public in an anonymized form that does not reveal the identity of any individual. So it implies that those documents have to be available rather than if they're available, they'll only be available in anonymized form. So that's just clarifying that if there's a record or document produced. And that's for the private interviews where someone's elected to have a private anonymous interview rather than one that's open and available to the public with identifying information. The next changes, and this is the one change in draft 3.1. You'll see on lines 15 and 16. So 2.1 says the commission shall periodically post to the commission's website, and we're changing the word periodically to regularly. So it says the commission shall regularly post to the commission's website a short summary. And the draft 2.1 says of the deliberative meetings, and we're changing the to all, so it's a short summary of all deliberative meetings held by the commissioners for this subsection. And a reminder that this is the deliberative meeting allowance where they don't trigger the open meeting law just to have a discussion. And again, the reminder is that they cannot make decisions in deliberative meetings. And we've laid that out in subsection C on the next page by excluding the taking of evidence, hearing arguments for or against an act or decision of the commission, taking public comment, and then making any decision related to an act or the official duties of the commission. All right. All right. Oh, and one other change in there is that with the taking evidence, we did say except as otherwise provided pursuant to section 909. And so that's recognizing that we do allow for the confidential interviews. That's the section 909 provision.
Person, you have a question?
Yes, are you done? I can't remember.
The last change is that we've renumbered the effective date section because we combined the two sections amending one BSA 906.
Okay.
One other change that the Senate did make that you can't see is we took out the section about the limited access meetings. Thank you.
Yes, that was taken out in draft 1.1.
Yeah.
So you don't see it in the current draft 3.1.
Great. Go ahead.
So my thought is, and unlike a lot of my colleagues, I love intent. And I don't know why the legislative intent is at the end and why it's not at the beginning of the bill.
The legislative intent language was added in that spot because originally when the House added it was added in relation specifically to both the deliberative meetings and the limited access meetings. The limited access meeting part of that legislative intent language has been taken out. But the references to working in an open, transparent, and inclusive manner were left in. We could, of course, move that up to section 1 if the committee prefers.
It just sort
Yeah.
of flows. It makes sense on the flow front, to have an intent at the beginning, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't in this
Okay.
case, because the first couple sections of this bill relate to the appointment
Right.
of members.
That's fair.
So, and from a structural standpoint, we can move it. From a stylistic standpoint, structurally and effectively, it doesn't make a difference whether we put it in the last section, first section, or somewhere in the middle.
So I guess my further thought on it, and I don't mean to belabor it, but it might make sense to come before the changes that we make. Before the
For section,
7? No, before.
So I'm gonna just
Anyway.
stop for a second. I'm sorry. I hear you, Senator, and I know you love legislative intent. I want you to have it wherever you want it.
No, I don't want it where it's
And
appropriate.
we are, and I'm sorry to the witnesses in the room, we are gonna lose quorum in 10 minutes.
Oh, okay.
So.
We can chat
um,
about this later.
and I would like to vote this bill today. We've
Okay.
worked on this quite a bit. I feel like we've gotten to a point where we're all comfortable enough with the bill to vote on it. And we'd love to move it forward so the commission can appoint a member and get moving. So if you're okay with it,
Yes.
and the next time we have legislative intent, you get to choose where it is.
You can, before we go to dinner.
And apologies to the
No, no.
witnesses in the room that we're gonna lose for, I'm sorry. But you can stay and talk to me, and I would love that.
Or any of us, we're not.
And, so are there any other questions for Damien on draft 3.1, H 649?
No.
Okay, are people comfortable with where we're at?
I would move, if you're ready for motion.
Bob, Senator Norris, are you still comfortable?
As comfortable as I'm going to get with the
Okay.
changes we just made, yes.
Great, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, Senator, go for it.
Okay. It is, with great pleasure, I would move that we pass that draft 3.1 of H 649 favorably.
All right, is there any further discussion? Okay, the clerk, you can call the roll.
Senator Bohosky,
Yes.
Senator White,
Yes.
Senator Norris, yes. Senator Watson,
Yes.
Senator Clarkson,
Yes.
Chair Hardy,
Yes. Well, thank you, committee, for all of your good work, and thank you, Damien, especially for all of your good work. Senator Vyhoski's gonna report it.
Talk.
And
what do I do that for?
thank you to Tucker and Tim, who also had hands in this bill as well, so,
Yeah.
yeah, really appreciate it. We're gonna miss you. I don't think we have another bill of yours.
We can change that.
Yeah.
We can.
Tomorrow then.
Melissa,
Oh, the
congratulations.
Veterans Homes bill is yours.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Back
We'll
tomorrow.
see you tomorrow.
Michelle, thank
Perfect.
Thank
Yeah,
you all
thank you.
for working so hard.
Great.
People in Vermont.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. So I
Good
think,
teamwork.
why don't we just, before we lose everybody, we have 7 minutes, and I just wanna say that, the Ethics Commission in the form of Christina and the Secretary of State's office in the form of Lauren and VLCT in the form of Ted have been working on their own time and
Thank you.
trying to come to some agreement on some of the provisions in H 875. And I'm wondering if we could just have a brief update and then we'll have you back on Friday. And again, I'm sorry that.
I think that was really helpful, so I appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you. For the record, Lauren Hibbert, Deputy Secretary of State. And as you said, we are very thankful for the opportunity to have some cafeteria conversations, although none of them occurred in the cafeteria. But I think it was very helpful, and I did file testimony, so it should be posted. There are areas that our three groups agree on. There's still some areas of disagreement, and there's some things that have yet to be discussed. So 875 touches municipal ethics quite significantly, and here's what we agree on. We recommend that the bill not repeal all of 24 VSA 1984 and 2291. Right now, 1984 is repealed in its entirety, and 2291 is repealed in part. And this is where the conflict of interest policies had to be adopted by towns and cities by ordinance or policy by the select board.
sorry, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Like, oh no.
Telling your man how the policies.
Right. I'm sure she does a good job. And so, structurally, the concept would be to have a statewide municipal code and to have utilized those sections in the law that are currently operational for conflict of interest to operationalize the municipal code. That takes us, again, trajectory analogy, it keeps us going towards something. And what this would do is it would still allow for local control under the mechanisms that's currently in place, either by ordinance or policy, to create how they operationalize the statewide code. They would need to identify who receives complaints, and that person would need to be submitted to the Ethics Commission. We were able to get consensus around a date, a common date of not of September 30th, 2025. So you'll see that date come up quite a bit. But functionally, the structure is different than it is in the current bill draft. Then we do agree that there should be training. After a lot of discussion, we think the initial training should be focused just on municipal ethics. I think we all agree in different ways that open meeting and public records are essential, but we think for this transition with the statewide code, what we can get to and what we can all agree on is just municipal ethics at this time. Then the deadline training for both newly elected and currently seated municipal officials would be that 9/30/2025. This would give the commission time to set up the training. They, I hope I'm not speaking inappropriately for Chris, but they won't be able to get it set up upon passage. They won't be able to get it set up really until the end of this year, early next January of 2025. And then we want to give people, and this is, as Ted would say, and I hope I'm representing both of you accurately, Ted would say this is thousands of people. So we want to give them time to do the training. I think the LCT would seek approval by the Ethics Commission to provide the training, but also the Ethics Commission would provide the training. So with that in mind, a little bit scaled down, one deadline for everybody.
Okay.
And then it should be clear in the bill that the local liaison could receive ethics complaints, but also the Ethics Commission should receive complaints.
That would help Colchester, right?
It still doesn't resolve who's going to enforce the complaints.
That's
And that's a big issue. I don't wanna minimize that issue. And the Ethics Commission will also collect data from the municipalities on every complaint that they receive, so that we can start to build data and start to have an understanding of the issues that are being faced. We are in agreement that state level enforcement should not happen in this bill. It's too fast, there's too many open questions about who should be doing it, whether it should be done at the regional level, at the state level, and the municipalities will enforce the unified code, the uniform code. This is a big compromise, frankly, for the Ethics Commission. But there's also a lot of logistics that were not fleshed out enough in the bill. And the Ethics Commission came in, and again, I don't want to speak for Chris, and I apologize if I am. The Ethics Commission came in asking for positions and money to do statewide enforcement, and they don't have the positions and money to do it. So this is in acknowledgement of where the bill is with staff and money. The next big area of agreement is the Ethics Commission should chair a study committee to make recommendations about a long-term plan for enforcement of municipal complaints, with a report due to the legislature January of 2025. This would contemplate regional boards, state board, continue at the local level, all of those possibilities. Who should be on the study committee and the makeup, the structure, we could not agree on. And I think that's a policy discussion. And the policy.
Legislature loves creating those things, so.
Yeah.
Maybe just the three of you could stay in the cafeteria all summer.
Yeah.
Well, we did joke around about that. We did joke around about it. And it sounds like fun. I will have to include Jenny, because Jenny's been a long, she was very helpful in this conversation. So I would bring her in. But I think there's some legitimate questions about An impartial, I think we all are united on the fact that, there should be, an impartial, well, this is my opinion. An impartial person who's writing the report and significant buy-in. And I don't know how you balance that. I wrote that in the testimony. But I think that there's significant voices that need to be heard, but there's also a desire that this is done in an impartial manner. And so it could be done with a large group of stakeholders, key players. It could be done with, there's many ways to I don't know. There's many ways, I was gonna say skin cap, I hate that term. But there's many ways to solve a problem, right? So, it could be in consultation, it could be these people all co-author, there's a wide gamut in between. The other thing that we all could agree on in varying degrees was the whistleblower protections. There needs to be an extensive conversation about what that actually means to this committee. For this committee to have an extensive conversation, we could not come up with a recommendation on the whistleblower protections that we all agreed on. I will say that it's an area of extreme importance to the ethics commission and concern to VLCT. And there's a lot of logistics that the Secretary of State's office just doesn't see in the bill. So that I think summarizes all of our perspectives as best we can. And then the other place where we couldn't agree was for whom should the training be mandated? Is it all municipal officers? Is it limited to only legislative bodies, quasi-judicial bodies, and elected officials? But there's a lot of folks in that gamut. And I think that we have a definition of municipal officers that we all agree on, but I just don't think we were able to close the loop enough, and I've been back to back meetings today, so I wasn't able to should I stop now?
I'm gonna stop you, yeah, because I agreed with another committee chair that I would give that, these two people, so I need to stick with my agreement. I'm sorry to stop you, but you've written it and we have it on our website. You've sent it to Olivia.
I've already noticed like 5 things.
If you wanna change the typos, that's fine. And I know that you are leaving and won't be with us, unfortunately, but thank you so much for your work thus far on it.
Who's leaving?
And
I'm just going on vacation.
she's not leaving.
Sorry,
She's not leaving.
I'm
Sorry.
almost just like, no,
But-
lock the door.
Ted and Christina, we will take this bill up on Friday again, and we'll put you on the list. We have maybe some outstanding local folks who might wanna come in as well.
Jenny's unavailable on Friday as well.
You're, okay. We might have an updated draft on Friday, depending on how much time I and our attorney has, but thank you very much for your work. I know this is really hard, and I know that there's not 100% agreement. I can see it in the body language, so I will make sure that we hear from the two of you on Friday.